Hi there, my name is Layton and welcome back to my knitting diary. This is the 7th episode and we are in a new location. This is my new apartment. I have moved approximately halfway across the country and I have started my new job. So a lot of big changes, which is why it's been a while since I've last recorded. I did actually record a full episode about a week ago, and I really didn't like how it turned out. I live on a moderately busy road, but it's on a hill, so there are a lot of cars going up the hill and revving their engines. There's also a train out back, so just a lot of background noises. And where I was filming, I was much closer to the road, so I had to cut a bunch of stuff out. A lot of awkward pauses, felt like I was losing my train of thought pretty often, so just decided to scrap that. There were also some issues with losing footage, but yeah, that's history. No one will ever see that. I'm just gonna delete it. And we're re-recording today. So I have been knitting a fair amount since I last talked to you. My cat has also moved in with me. Her name is Penelope. So you might hear some noises in the background from her, but I'm not sure I'm going to try that hard to keep them out. That's just kind of how my life is now. So I have a few finished objects to share with you, a fair amount of whips, and some acquisitions. Another thing is that I have written out everything. So this is going to be a little bit more scripted than I usually am. Just kind of a reminder of what I need to say, so that I don't get lost or start talking about something randomly. Before we get started on the actual finished objects, I want to talk about what I'm wearing. This is my Petal Drop Camisole by Handmade by Florence, and I finished it last year, but I have actually made some updates to it. This was a couple months ago now. I actually forgot to talk about it in episode 6, and I also forgot to talk about it in the episode that will never see the light of day. So I thought I should really talk about it now before I completely forget about it. So I finished this last year. It's knitted in Drops Safran in the color Chalk. And I was just never sure about the fit because what I did, I guess I should talk about first, is that I shortened the straps, first of all. This is kind of a common problem that knitted camisoles have. Often the straps will stretch out, and especially this being cotton yarn, I think they just stretched out even more than I was expecting. I also, at the time, thought that the I-cord on the straps would shorten them more than they did. So the straps were just too long. They were actually low enough to where the sides of my bra would be exposed, and I don't really have a big deal if my bra straps are out like this. That doesn't bother me that much. They exist. For some reason, just the side of the bra being exposed was just too much for me. I didn't like that. So yeah, I shortened the straps. The other thing I did is I actually widened them. So because I was taking all of the I-cord off anyway in order to shorten them, I figured I might as well just widen them as well because they were pretty thin. The pattern repeat is actually this kind of petal design with 2 purl stitches on the side. And so the straps were also that, but then when you pick up for the I-cord on the side, you kind of eat up that purl stitch on the side. So the petal drop rib thing stitch pattern here is kind of sandwiched by these I-cords. So what I did is I took the actual stitch pattern repeat and I added 2 more purl stitches on either side of that. 1 stitch to be the selvage stitch so I could pick up the I-cord, and 1 purl stitch because when you actually repeat the stitch pattern, you actually 2 purl stitches between, so I wanted to kind of recreate that on the I-cord, so you would have 2 purl stitches and then the I-cord. Unfortunately, it's basically behaving like ribbing, so the I-cord is kind of, encroaching on the purl stitches and they're just kind of going to the back so you can't really see them. So overall the width of the strap hasn't really changed. I would really like it to be more like this maybe, I don't know, because then you would get more coverage of the bra straps, if that's what you wanted. I think in order to actually do that you would have to maybe, I'm not sure, like maybe have the selvage stitch be a knit stitch. That might help. Rather than a purl stitch, but I really don't know. But yeah, I think I'm a lot happier with it now. It obviously did shorten the bottom of it a little bit when I shortened the straps, so it is way more of a crop top. Like my belly button is definitely exposed if I'm not wearing bottoms high enough to cover it. But I think I'm happy with it now. I still like it, obviously. I liked it then and I like it now. It's just something I thought I needed to do. I think that's all I wanted to say about this. I need to wear it more often because I do like the way it looks and I like this color. Moving on to my actually finished objects, new finished objects I guess I should say. We have this bag that I made. This is a self-drafted pattern, so I didn't really follow anything. The yarn is Juniper Moon Farm Zooey Spray in the color 302 Maracas Blush. This is a cotton linen blend. I think it's 50-50, and I used up pretty much the entire skein of it. I got this yarn in a blind bag from Knit and Bolt, which is a yarn store in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I was previously trying to make a kind of summery crop top out of it, but I figured there wasn't enough yarn really to make that work. So then I made this bag. This is very much inspired by the bags that Gregoria Fibers makes, like the Brigitte bag, and I think it's the Yvonne bag, which just have a nice kind of stitch pattern and, you know, straps. They're pretty much shaped like this. I think mine's a little bit thinner and longer, especially with the stretch of the fabric. What I did to make this was I used Judy's Magic Cast On. I cast on 126 stitches, so 63 stitches per side. I knit and stockinette for a while, and then I transitioned into this Basketweave pattern, which is linked on my Ravelry. There are also some stockinette stitches on the side, just for a nicer transition between the two sides. Then when I got to the top, I split the front and the back and decreased evenly on the two sides, and then I made I-cords for the handles. When I finished the bag and put some stuff in it, I hadn't actually sewn the corners up at the bottom. I don't know if you can see, so they're like tucked in to make a little bit of a flat bottom. That was not originally the plan, but when I started putting things into the bag, the like corners would stick out in an awkward way because things wouldn't actually like fully go into the corners, and I didn't like how that looked. So when I did this, it kind of gave things something to lie against, one, and got rid of that issue really with the corners so that they're a little bit more rounded, which I much prefer the look of. There's not much to say about this. I was using this a lot in June, but not as much anymore. I think I just carry around more things when I'm working, and this isn't really a big enough size to carry like the works in progress that I have going on now. I think it would be big enough to carry a sock, but not like a sweater, which is, as you'll see, what I'm working on more now. So I really like this. I really like this color, and it's a very summery bag, so I'm not sure it'll get much use in the future, but next summer it'll probably come back out. The next finished object I have is my second version of the Tombow tee by Handmade by Florence. I previously made this pattern using Knitting for Olive merino, and I included the stripes when I made it before. This is made using Shibui Knits Lunar in the color white. I believe this yarn is now discontinued, so you can't get it anymore, which I also got it on sale, I think, because it was discontinued. When I bought it, this is a merino silk blend, and it is a lace weight, basically. This is by Handmade by Florence, by the way, if I didn't mention that. So I had 2 skeins of this in stash and a little bit left over from the last project I used this yarn on, which was my Hakuji top, where I didn't actually end up making the sleeves. It's just a sleeveless garment. So the yarn that would have been used for the sleeves went into this. I used 107 grams, so there was a little bit left from the other 2 skeins in order to make this. And I used 3mm needles on this. The modifications that I made were I knitted a folded cuff at all of the edges. I didn't actually go down in needle size, so they flare out a little bit, but I think that's cute. It just adds a little bit of a kind of fluttery touch that I like. I made the size B in this one. I previously made the size A. I think when I made it last, I used pretty big needles for a looser gauge, so I think I was over gauge on that one, and I think I'm pretty close to gauge on this one. I just wanted this to not fit as tightly, so that's why I went up a size. One of the reasons for that is because this is light yarn, and it's pretty much a summer tee, although I think I'll be wearing it during the winter too. It goes right in my armpits, and I wanted to make sure that there was enough space for air under there. It wasn't like right up in there. I like a fair amount of positive ease underneath the armpits for that reason. I am really happy with the way that this turned out. It's pretty much exactly what I wanted, which is just a white t-shirt. I can wear it underneath other knit things like cardigans or vests especially, and I think it looks really nice. It's just really good for layering. And being in such a thin yarn, it is much closer to like an actual t-shirt than my other Tombow tee, which is a bit thicker because the yarn itself is thicker. Knitting for Olive Merino is a light fingering compared to this being lace. I think that's all I have to say for the Tombow tee. I feel like when I have the things written down that I want to say, I say them so much more quickly. So this feels like it's going really fast, but we'll see how it ends up when I'm actually editing. The next finished object I have, I think I'll be able to talk about for a little bit longer. This is the Lyra Tee by Aran Cardigan. This is a pretty standard contiguous shoulder shaping tee, which means you have this section on the shoulders where you're increasing every single row, and then when you get to the sleeves, you're increasing on one side for the sleeves, and then usually there is a raglan section. This is Holst Garn Coast, which is a 50-50 mixture of cotton and merino. I used about 2 skeins of it, and this is the color Rosewood, which is, I think, one of my favorite colors. I just really like this kind of not too bright, but orangey pink. My cat is in a box down there, so you might hear some scratching noises. He likes cardboard. I made the smallest size of the Lyra Tee, and unfortunately I did not write down the needle size I used. I think it was probably a US 3, but I really don't remember. I really like the design of this tee. I have been following the designer Aran Cardigan on Instagram, and so I knew when she announced it and started posting pictures of it that I wanted to make it. I was really attracted by these details on the sleeves. This is half twisted rib, and then you have these cable details at the cuffs and the hem. And I really love the texture of the half twisted rib. It's so springy, and I thought it would give a really nice flounce to the sleeves as I was knitting it. Unfortunately, we now have to come to the kind of sad part, which is I don't really like this. And I'll kind of go through the reasons for that. One, I'm not sure about this color on me. I really like it, obviously. I think my lipstick is kind of this color. I'm not sure I like this much of this color on me, although I think it may be superseded by other things about the fit that I don't like on this. So before I get into that, I do want to say I did make some modifications, so that could very likely be the reason for my issues with the fit, though I am not sure. The first one I made was I added some more rows of just stockinette after the shoulder shaping. Well, the armhole shaping, I guess. As I was mentioning with my tombow tee, I really don't like tops that go right up into my armpits, so I wanted to make sure that I had enough space under the armpits, and I think I succeeded. I don't mind where the actual armpits end up when I'm wearing this. I think in order to show my least favorite element best, I'm going to have to put it on, so give me a second here. So this is how it fits, which I think it's how it's supposed to fit. I'm not sure. I think the biggest thing that I dislike about this is this part here. There's just a lot of, especially when I do this, there's a lot of extra fabric here. And to be honest, I think that might be because I have a small bust, and so it's not like stretching out in the way that maybe it's meant to be. I made the smallest size, and I'm pretty sure my gauge is pretty accurate, and I didn't think it was supposed to be super fitted up here. So, I mean, it might look better. It would eliminate some of the extra fabric, I think, if I somehow made a smaller size and had fewer stitches along here. I think, in reality, the raglan increases are probably contributing to that. The raglan increases start about here, which in my opinion is pretty high compared to the other contiguous shoulder shaping pieces that I've done. I think it just added too much fabric in the front for me. As I said, I did add those extra rows before splitting, but I really don't think that contributed to the increase in fabric here, which is causing the excess that I don't like. The other thing is the sleeves, which I really loved in all the pattern pictures. I don't know how I feel about them on me. This is the exact number of rows in the pattern. I didn't extend them at all, and they seem really short compared to the pattern pictures. I feel like in the pattern pictures they go down more to the elbow, which I think might help. I really didn't want to modify the length of the sleeves at all because I wanted to trust what the pattern says. I figured that the twisted rib might stretch in some way where it would get longer, so knitting to pattern just ended up with these pretty normal length sleeves, but just not what I thought they would be. There's also some, I think it like curves weirdly here, because you do end up getting a little bit more of that flare, but because the half-twisted rib is confined by this, the increases at the shoulders, you kind of get an awkward, in my opinion, look underneath the sleeves, and I just really don't think that they flare as much as I would like them to. Unfortunately, this could definitely be an issue with the yarn that I chose. It might just not have enough drape to get the look that I would really like. The last thing, I'm gonna stand up I think, is that I did lengthen it, so it's definitely much more of a t-shirt length than in the pattern. The pattern has it way more of a crop top, and I don't actually know how much longer I made it, just that it is longer, and I just don't really like that fit around my hips. I can't really tuck it into anything, and I think when I wear it not tucked into anything, it's at a length where it kind of elongates my torso in a way that I don't like. So obviously, again, this is not a fault of the pattern. This is something that I don't like that I modified. But I don't really know if if I had just knitted it to that cropped length, whether that would have helped me overlook some of the other fit issues that I am disliking. I think it might help with the overall boxy look of it. If it is shorter, there wouldn't be as much fabric to kind of pull in on the sides and then give me a more fitted look around here, but less fitted up here. So I think, unfortunately, the final outcome for this project is that it's probably going to be frogged. I did end up buying 4 skeins of this yarn because I thought I was going to hold it double in order to knit this top, but I ended up liking it more held single. So I have a fair amount of yarn that could be used in a different project, which I think I would enjoy more than this. Again, I still really like this pattern and all of the design elements. I just don't really like how they look on me in this garment that I've knitted this way. So yeah, I'm probably going to frog it. But we live and we learn. It is warm in here. That is all the finished objects I have, so we're going to move on to works in progress, and I'm going to apologize because there's going to be some needle clacking. It's really unavoidable at this point. The first work in progress I have is this top, which is for my mom. The pattern is the Hakuji top down by Iri Shimizu, and I am knitting it once again in Holst Garn Coast, but this time in the color Lavender. I have talked about this in my last episode, I think, and quite possibly the episode before, but I don't remember. But this has been on my needles for quite a while, and I expect it to be on my needles for quite a while longer as well. It is a pretty big project, and so progress on it is quite slow. There are over 400 stitches, I believe, on my needles right now, so it takes a lot to get through a round, and to get through all of the rounds that I need to get through in order to finish it will take even longer. So this is how it is. You can kind of see, I think maybe in the past episodes it was maybe a little bit hard to see what was going on, but here we have a neck hole, 2 armholes, and the bottom, of course, which I am working on knitting down. I think between the last episode and this episode I have joined in the round, which means I get to say that I have made a fair amount of progress since the last episode, and that is because this is my work project. So this is what I bring to work on during my mandatory 1-hour lunch break, in which I take 10 minutes to eat a sandwich and then spend 15 minutes knitting. It is much more enjoyable now that I've joined in the round. I don't have to purl as much, but the large cables on this are still quite time consuming. I think I'm just not a fan of huge cables. I really don't like the tension of the row after you cable and having to knit into those really scrunched up stitches. Another thing that I've noticed now that I've joined in the round is that my tension on the ribbing, because the cables are ribbed, has changed a fair amount. I'll try and show you. So like here, for example, that is before joining the round. You can see that my knit stitches are somewhat uniform. My ribbon is always a little bit messy, but compared to like there, this is after joining the round, where my knit stitches have opened up quite a lot. I think it's pretty clear difference. I'm hoping that it will just block out. The tension on the whole thing is a little bit all over the place because of the ribbing, so I hope it won't be that noticeable, and I don't think my mom is going to notice anyway. I have done a little bit of math because the construction of this is pretty simple. It's like 2 rectangles, and then once you join in the round, you just continuing basically the exact dimensions of the 2 rectangles. So I have gotten about 48,000 stitches into this project, and we're probably less than halfway through. I'm expecting that this will be over 100,000 stitches by the time I finish, and that's kind of crazy. I don't do that math very often, but just the amount of time that we put into knitting is kind of insane when you think about it. Try not to think about it, really. I'm hoping that this will be done before the end of the year. I started this in May, and I think at that point the plan was that it would be done for my mom's birthday, which is at the end of August, which is this month. That's definitely not going to happen, so, you know, aiming for a Christmas gift. I think that's everything about the Hakuji that I'd like to say. It'll probably be showing up in the next episode, hopefully with more progress made, but we shall see. So the next work in progress is related to the last one I showed. Since I won't have that sweater done for my mom by her birthday, I needed to come up with another gift, and this is an acquisition and whip all in one. I got this yarn, which is Reynolds, the original Lopi, from a thrift store. I saw it in a bag. It still had the ball band on. It said 100% wool, so I had to get that for $5. Plus, I also got some assorted brown acrylic, which may be used at some point. We shall see. But this is what I got the bag for. This is, I believe, 100% Icelandic wool, and my plan was to make my mom's mittens at some point. So here we are. I have them mostly done at this point. The last thing I need to do, I didn't actually realize I hadn't finished this thumb yet, and I need to actually finish the tops, but I want to have my mom try them on first. I think we have pretty similar sized hands, which is pretty small, so that is nice because I have to knit less, but her fingers are a little bit longer, so I want to make sure that she has enough space in the mitten. I should talk about the pattern. This is the No Swatch, No Gauge Bulky Mittens by Jean Gifford. It is free on Ravelry, and it's a pretty standard mitten pattern. True to the name, I did not swatch, but my gauge is about, I think, 4 stitches per inch. When I block these, they might open up a little bit, but honestly, I'm fine with the gauge as they are. I think a bit tighter is good for mittens. I fully believe at this point that everyone should have a pair of wool mittens, because these will keep your hands way warmer than any kind of commercially produced non-natural fiber glove or mitten will do. These are, I believe, essential, especially if you live in a cold climate, like I used to live in Minneapolis, and definitely needed those wool mittens that I made for myself, and yeah, that kind of changed my entire view about mittens and gloves. One funny thing about this is that I don't know if I have gotten better or worse at estimating my yarn for longtail cast on, because when I cast on this mitten, I had about an inch left of the tail after casting on. This is only like 30 stitches, I believe, that you cast on, so I really could have done it over again, but I think this is fine. This wool is pretty grabby, so I think once I run the tail through a couple stitches, it'll stay in place. The other thing I would like to say, which I am learning as I make more mittens, is that the way that a lot of knitted mittens fit, I'm not sure I like. So generally they have the ribbing for the wrist, and then once you transition into stockinette or whatever the pattern is, you pretty much instantly start increasing for the thumb gusset. But I feel like that's just not really how hands are shaped, at least not my own hand. I would really like the ribbing to just be on the wrist, and then as the hand is all in stockinette, but with the general shaping that a lot of mittens take, the ribbing goes up to approximately here on my hand, which I think is just a little bit too high for me. This is pretty easily remedied. I could just knit a few rows in stockinette before doing thumb gusset, but I didn't think about that on this mitten. But it will definitely be something I take into account in the future. I'm not sure anyone else in my family would wear wool mittens, but we'll see. I'll ask. Maybe once they see these, they'll like them. And I'll have to make more, which is fine. I like making mittens. This is just a quick project. It was really nice because the works in progress that I have going on right now are all pretty long term, and I really needed the satisfaction of being able to like finish something. So even though these aren't fully finished, and I really do need to finish this thumb, it was nice to just go through something really quickly. These both took about, I'd say, like 2 sessions of knitting to get through. So yeah, really quick. I also used double pointed needles for the first time in a long time because I figured since there were so few stitches, the proportion of time that I would be fiddling with a magic loop cable compared to the amount of time where I would be actually knitting was going to be a lot more annoying after I knit like 10 stitches and then I would have to like fiddle with magic loop. Versus with double pointed needles, it's really quick to just push them along, though I did make a fair amount of noise when I went to a knitting group recently and someone specifically asked me if I had ever tried knitting mittens on magic loop, and I was like, oh, usually I do. I promise. Sorry for the noise. The next project I have as a work in progress is actually pretty big, so I will kind of struggle to show it to you now. But this is a cardigan. Hopefully you can see. I have the back panel and one of the front panels done, and I grafted them at the top. This yarn is Lion brand Fisherman's Wool in the undyed colorway. They sell it separately in 100 gram skeins. I believe normally it sells in 4 ounce, which is, I don't know, more than 100 grams. But when you buy it from them, kind of in the undyed state, where it's like twisted into a hank, which I think is probably easier to dye, it comes in 100 grams. I have 7 of them, and I have kind of been estimating that I will use a ball of yarn for kind of each element. So the front panel I knit to use pretty much exactly 1 skein. The back used 2 skeins because it's just the front twice. And then I'm expecting that each of the arms will use 1 skein and the other panel, front panel, will use 1 skein. And then, you know, we'll see how much I have left to do the edgings. Who knows? This pattern I should really talk about is called Rice Fields. It is from Drops, and I have knit a fair amount of Drops patterns. I normally really like Drops patterns. I think they're a great resource for a little bit more of an experienced knitter in terms of stitch counts, general construction techniques, just inspiration for different looks, different styles. But this is a very old Drops pattern. I think the pattern book it's from a pamphlet, I don't know how that works, is like 7, and I think they're up to about 200 something now. So I think it's from the 80s, I believe. And the pattern online has a lot of mistakes. First of all, this bobble pattern, diamond pattern here, is not charted. It's just written out, and there are several mistakes in the way that it's written out. It has a lot of corrections, but that doesn't mean that the entire thing is fixed. And then there's a comment section full of people being confused. I think I'll probably make a video specifically on this pattern at some point and kind of the process of knitting and figuring out how to actually make this pattern work, because what I ended up doing was charting the pattern, and I unified some of the decreases because there were knit 3-togethers and purl 3-togethers that I really didn't know why they were doing different ways. I fixed some of the mistakes, and I changed some of the stitch counts for mine because I didn't want as much of a cinched in hem. I started this pattern because I really need a warm sweater to wear at work because the AC at work is intense and I get very cold just sitting in a chair. So I needed a big warm wool sweater to keep me warm. I did start the sleeve, as you can see, but I think I'm gonna have to frog this because I actually forgot that I went down a needle size, down 2 needle sizes actually, for the cuff, and this is just kind of much bigger compared to the cuffs that are on the rest of the sweater. So I think I cast on and knit the ribbing in US size 6, which is a 4mm needle, and the rest of the body is knit in size 8, which is a 5mm needle. I'm really hoping to make that video because I think it'd be kind of funny going over the mistakes and the comments and just kind of inspiring people to take on a project even if it's not really clearly defined. Patterns can be bad, but especially with a simpler pattern like this where it is just panels, it can be quite easy to fix them. And one of the reasons I really took on this project, I think, is because I felt so frustrated by how wrong the pattern was, and I really felt like I needed to fix it because I really do like the look of this sweater, and I would like other people to be able to make it if they would like to. If you're interested, the chart is linked on my Ravelry page already, but I think I honestly might write up like a Google Doc with translating, fixing all of the mistakes in the pattern. So I'll try and make a video on the kind of process as a whole once I finish the whole sweater, I believe. And by then I should have probably written up that full explanation, pattern rework, I suppose, by the time that video comes out. I am pretty excited about that cardigan project, but apparently this is the time where I'm just taking on way too many works in progress, and this next project is kind of inspired by stuff that's going on in my life. So as I said, I just started a new job, and I found out that I actually have to wear a work uniform. I work in an office, so I feel like that's not that common, but it is just a blue shirt, so I can wear whatever pants I want. I can wear sweaters over it, but it is really weird for me. I don't know if it's clear from if you've just been watching my videos, but I think it's pretty clear if you look on my Instagram and the kind of projects that I usually have posted on there. I pretty much never wear blue. I wear jeans, and those are kind of the only major blue items I have in my wardrobe. I do have a dress that I made that was blue, but that was because I stole the yarn from my mom. She had it and she wasn't using it for anything, so I made a dress out of it. And I like wearing that, but that's like the only blue thing that I've knit. So I'm knitting that other sweater, but in addition to that, I thought it would be nice to have a blue sweater to match the blue shirt. I have moved to a new area, and so there are a lot of new yarn stores for me to explore in this region, and one of my favorites is Swanson Fabrics. So they're actually like a thrift store basically for fiber arts, mostly fabric, but they have been getting a lot of yarn in recently. So it's people donating like their old stash yarn and helping it find a new maker. I will talk about more stuff that I've gotten from there when I talk about strictly acquisitions that haven't been cast on yet, but there is something that I've gotten that I have cast on already, so that's what we're talking about next. One of the things about getting your yarn from this thrift store kind of place is that you usually won't get huge quantities of it. A lot of times it is just like single skeins that are left over from people's projects, or they're not like super clearly labeled, but they have been getting in a lot of donations lately that have full sweater quantities, and one of those is the yarn that I'm using in this. So Swanson's has actually been my first experience with Noro yarn, and that's what this is. This is Noro Churimen in color 2. They actually don't make this yarn anymore, so it is a wonder that I managed to get 14 skeins of this yarn for about $30. The price tag that is on the yarn said it was about $10 a skein, so would have been about $140 when purchased new, but again I got it for $30, so crazy. It is a 60% cotton, 24% silk, and 16% wool blend, and it is this kind of crazy blue, brown, gray, little tiny bit of green colorway, and I am making with it an Entrelac cardigan. So this is my first time knitting Entrelac, and I'm knitting not from a pattern, so we'll see how it goes. This might be new to you as well, but it is this kind of diamond basket weavy kind of pattern that is made using short rows. So you just knit kind of back and forth, and you'll like pick up stitches along the sides of the previous diamonds as you go. And I thought this was a really cool use for this yarn that would really allow the kind of color changes to show really nicely. So I bought this yarn because I really like the feel of it. It's very soft with that cotton and silk content. And I thought it would match my work shirt pretty well, which is like a navy color like this. It is a little bit wilder than I was expecting, and the way that the color pooling is working, it's going to be very mismatched. I was thinking originally about just making a pretty standard stockinette cardigan, but I was concerned about the different sides of it just like not fully not matching. And obviously that is what's going to happen here, but I feel like with the Entrelac pattern, it'll be a little bit more acceptable. I really feel like in my mind, this is like a knitter's project. Like, it's not really the most fashionable, I guess I would say. It's like, I'm knitting this for the appreciation of knitting and the appreciation of this yarn. But I'm not sure it's like, it's not something I would probably go to a shelf and pick up. I think it'll be a very kind of grandma-y cardigan, which I think is fun. I'm fully embracing my grandma life at this point. I have a cat. I go home and knit every day. I bake a lot of bread. That's just how my life is now. So thought I'd have something to go along with it. Unfortunately, based on the color pooling now, I'm ending up with a lot of this like cerulean blue on one of the sides, and like all of the colors that I would like on the other side, which is a little bit unfortunate. I did just join in the second ball of yarn, and so I probably could have picked which end I joined in order to kind of break things up. Because there is some element of knitting back and forth too, you will get more color pooling on like every 2 rows. So like these 2 diamonds here are pretty similar, and then the next 2 sets of diamonds at the end are pretty similar. This is very much inspired by a pattern I saw in Ravelry called the Entrelac jacket, but I believe on that they knit all of the panels separately like I'm doing for the Aran cardigan, and then there's even like extra panels in between to join them. I didn't feel like doing that because I figured it would involve more math than I would like in order to determine the size of each of the panels, whereas this is just, I kind of measure around my body and cast on with enough positive ease to make it work. I'm also definitely going to do some ribbing. I'm probably going to pick up stitches from the bottom of this as well to do ribbing, but I didn't want to knit all of the ribbing and then start on the pattern in case the pattern ended up being something I didn't like, and then I would have wasted all that time ribbing. And then there will be ribbing along the sides. This is really annoying to show because it is so floppy. I'm still not 100% sure about it. It honestly might end up getting frogged, but I'm kind of enjoying the process as it is. I've actually learned how to knit backwards in order to do this because you're doing so many short rows of like 5 stitches or even less. It is so annoying to have to like completely turn your work around to do like 1 stitch sometimes. So learning to knit backwards has really helped with that, and I think on a piece like this, which is really forgiving about tension because the yarn is so loosely spun that some bits are really tight and some bits are really open, and so your tension's always going to look a little bit weird. I have been playing with my tension a lot in this. I currently have a size 8 needle, which is 5 millimeters, and a size 7 needle, which is 4.5 millimeters, on the 2 sides because the purl stitches are a lot looser than the knit stitches, but I have been figuring out different ways to make my tension look nicer and avoid some of that. It's also pretty forgiving about mistakes. Like, there is a mistake here. Can you see where it is? Probably not. So I'm enjoying it in that way. It is pretty nice and somewhat mindless to just pick up. Obviously there isn't like a stitch pattern chart that I have to think about, but I do have to like look when I'm picking up stitches to make sure I'm picking up the right ones and where I'm decreasing and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's nice so far. Once it blocks, I think it'll look a lot nicer because everything really flattens out. I did test that. So we'll see. I'm really hoping as I knit more that the colors will kind of switch themselves up. I've really managed to pull this really well, if that's what I wanted, but it's not really what I want. So we're gonna hope to get some of these navies on this side and maybe some of these light blues on the other side in the future. We'll see where it is in the next episode, whether it's even still like this. Obviously I can still frog it, and that's still an option, and I won't mind. It'll be what it is. I think that's everything I have to say. Enjoying this project so far, so we'll see where it goes. That is all of my works in progress, so now we get to talk about some acquisitions. There are actually a fair amount of acquisitions, which is not a good thing. I've completely cut myself off from buying more yarn this month, because I've been going to Swanson's, but we'll go over those acquisitions now. So the first one I have to share is actually quite old, and I haven't shared it in the last episode because it was actually in a different state when I filmed the last episode. So this is some Barocco Lana Slate in the color 78103. I think it has a name, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I have two skeins of this, which are 100 grams and 100% wool. These are about a DK weight. My original plan when I bought this was to make the Nona vest by Yeti Knits, but I'm not sure about that now. I don't regret buying this yarn because it is just a DK weight wool, so I can use it in a ton of projects, but I just don't really know if I want that project anymore. I actually bought this yarn when I was driving back from the interview to get the job that I have now, so I would like to knit this up in something that I can wear to work, which a vest would be nice for because then I can just wear it over my work shirt, but it is not on my top priority of projects to cast on, and obviously I have a lot of projects cast on right now that I should finish before casting on something new. So that's this yarn and the theoretical project that I have to go with it. This is another Noro acquisition from Swanson Fabrics. It doesn't have the ball band on it because I was actually knitting some swatches and stuff with it, but this is Noro Tokonatsu in the color 23, Lavender. It is a really pretty pink, way more my color than the other Noro yarn, and it has some flecks of like blue, green, and orange in it, and a little bit of yellow. The plan for this is to make probably a little necktie. I actually was looking through my stash recently, and I rediscovered that I have this little ball of mohair. This is 125 meters of Aran weight yarn, 50 grams, and this is about 110 meters of mohair. This is Biches et Bouches Le Petit Silk Mohair. That is from my Tied and True cardigan that I showed in, I think, the last episode. They're not the perfect match, but I think the mohair will just add a little element of nice fuzz, and I would like to use it up, and I think this would be a great way to use it up. The Tokonatsu is 40% cotton, 30% rayon, and 30% silk, so pairing it with mohair isn't like the most obvious choice. Usually you would want more of a woolly yarn to pair with the mohair, but I think it'll add a lot of warmth to this, and it'll be a really nice little necktie that I can wear. I think with the little blue elements in the yarn, I might be able to wear this with my work shirt and just have that little fun knitted element that I don't get to have that much in my outfits anymore. And the last acquisition I have is also from Swanson's. This is Fleece by Brunswick. This is a boucle yarn, which is kind of cream with some more yellowy and pinky accents. I have been wanting to knit something in boucle for a while. It's been pretty much a trend on Instagram. And when I saw that they had 4 skeins of this at Swanson's, I snapped them up. These are 100 grams each. They are 96% wool and 4% nylon, and they have 100 yards per skein. My plan for these is to hopefully make a jacket. I don't really think that's going to happen, so we'll see. I was thinking about pairing it with something else to just really bulk it up even a little bit more. This is already a bulky yarn, but you know, I think if I pair it with something, I might be able to get more fabric out of it. I also am planning to purchase some different yarn to do the cuffs and like the trim in order to get a full jacket out of this. It'll probably end up being a vest, if I'm being honest, because I don't really want like a super fitted boucle jacket. But there are some drops patterns that I'm looking at that use a similar amount of bulky yarn, so I might be able to get away with it. It might just not be like as dense of a fabric. We'll see. I swatched a bit. I actually cast on a raglan sweater using a raglan like calculator, but I think the neck was way too tight. So I ended up frogging that. And now this will just live in my stash for a little bit. I think once it gets cooler, it will be much more enjoyable to knit. So I'm looking forward to that. That is all of the normal things that I usually talk about, my finished objects, works in progress, and acquisitions. But I do want to just talk about the ways that I've been thinking about knitting recently with kind of the life changes that have been going on. So as I mentioned, I have a new job and I have to wear a uniform Monday through Thursday. I have a fair amount of knitted tops and stuff that I like to wear, but now that over half of the days in the week will be wearing this work shirt, I don't really have the luxury to wear some of those items anymore. So that has kind of changed my outlook on knitting in the future. Obviously, I have cast on 2 cardigans now, which I can wear over the work shirt, and one of those is a blue cardigan with blue yarn, which I would have never made before starting this job. So that has really changed my focus on what I want to make in the future. I'm definitely going to be making a lot more cardigans, maybe some vests. I already have vests, but I would like to have vests that I can wear over my work shirt and go with that. It's just felt like a really big shift in my knitting outlook that I'm not sure I feel about. It's weird, definitely, because I'm such a pink person, and pink and red and like orangey colors I love, and so now having to approach half of my days of the year wearing blue is very different for me. It's really silly, but it is weird. So I think the projects that you'll see on this channel I think will change a lot going into the future. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm going to do my best to continue knitting the things that I love to knit. And obviously I still have 3 days of the week to wear things that I love. Thank you so much for watching if you have gotten to this point. I feel like with my notes I have gotten through a lot of these projects really quickly. This is definitely going to be much shorter than the last podcast I filmed that will never see the light of day. But hopefully you enjoyed hearing about some of the stuff I'm working on and my kind of knitting philosophy, I guess, a little bit. I hope that if you liked this video, you'd consider subscribing or liking or leaving a comment about what you're working on, or if you have any ideas for my current knitting situation or any of the projects that I'm working on. I'd love to hear them. Again, thank you so much for watching, returning if you are returning. I hope you have a great rest of the summer, and bye!